We got a special mailbag podcast coming to you guys today. Let's get right into it on today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Keke. You can find me over on Twitter at Keke. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Again, if you want to find the best way to support the podcast, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, today, we're recording this on Saturday, giving you guys a special weekend episode again. We've been doing that the last few weeks. Every Saturday, we come out with a little podcast mailbag episode for you guys where I answer all of your guys' questions you guys send in. We got a lot of questions sent in today, so we're not going to spend too much time on the intro. I just want to let you guys know that I will be going back and forth between YouTube and Twitter because I want to make sure I answer questions from both fan base or both platforms. So none of you guys feel like you guys are being left out. So we're going to go back, forth, and hopefully we can get through as many as possible. So first, we're going to start over on YouTube. And again, if you guys want to send in some questions, send them to @Kukahil, or you can comment on one of the YouTube videos over at the YouTube channel. Just put hashtag mailbag, and we'll be sure to try and answer them on next week's episode. But let's go ahead and get into it. First question is from BRRG on YouTube. He says, how did you feel about watching Halliburton playing with Deke and Stu? Also, did Cade prove to our coaches that we desperately need to run a pick and roll with our big guys last night? MVP Cade. Definitely was super hype that Cade won MVP. It was a lot of fun to see him win MVP. I'm going to keep it a buck with you guys. I did not watch the entire night. I've watched every single game with the Pistons this year, and we finally have a little break in the All-Star break. So I went with my fiance and we watched the movie together and spent some time together. But I was able to catch the final 2 games of the Rising Stars Challenge, and it was pretty fun. So I don't have many thoughts on Halliburton playing with Deke and Stu. I'm not one of those people who the whole, we should have drafted this guy, draft that guy. We drafted who we drafted. We got to figure out how to make who we drafted work, all those kind of things. So I wasn't really paying attention to Halliburton with those 2 guys. As far as Cade with the lob threat or pick and roll with big guys, it's an all-star game. It's a Rising Stars Challenge. Not much defense, I would say, was being played that much. So you don't take anything away from it. But I feel like Cade's shown that throughout the entire season. I think the entire team has shown that throughout the entire season, that they desperately need a big guy, a lob threat type of player on this roster. So I don't think anything that happened yesterday matters really. But I think throughout the entire season thus far, it's been proven that they desperately need that. And you already saw a little bit of it start to happen with Marvin Bagley in their last game before the break, where Cade threw an alley-oop up to him and he posterized. I forget who it was. But that's the kind of thing they've needed on this team all year. So don't think it was the All-Star game that showed it, but the entire season's worth of sample size showed that they need that kind of big guy. So hopefully Bagley's able to answer that. Next question is going from on Twitter. It's from @CadeSeason. It says, would you rather see the Pistons win more games after the All-Star break and see lots of development from the young guys, or keep losing a lot and get a 1 to 3 pick? Okay, so this is we've had this discussion a few times on the podcast, not in depth, but it's been brought up a little bit because there's this big, argument that happens when people are like, oh, the Pistons need to do this better, or oh, Dwayne Casey needs to do this different, that different. You have some people in the Piston community, some beat writers go out and say, you guys just want to be stuck with the 8th pick all the time. Well, that's just first. I don't believe those 2 things it's either or there. You can play better and still not be trying to get the 8th draft pick. So I think the Pistons can play better. If you're looking, I'll go ahead and share the screen for those of you who are on the YouTube channel watching this. And like I say, always, we'll be sure to describe to you guys what they're seeing on the podcast. But if you're looking at the screen, the Pistons are currently, let me remove my little name tag right here real quick. If you look at the standings, the Pistons are currently 14th in the Eastern Conference with 13 wins. They're tied with the worst team in the entire NBA, the Orlando Magic, with 13 wins. You move over to the Western Conference, the worst team in the Western Conference has 15 wins. That's the Houston Rockets. Then you got the Thunder at 18 wins. You get the Pacers at 20. So my overall point of bringing that up, and I'll move that out of the way now for you guys watching on YouTube. My overall point here is the fact that even if the Pistons started to play a little better and started to win more games, they're not going to move out the top 3 in lottery odds. I'm going to assume they're not going to win too many games where they catch up with the Pacers. They're not going to win too many games where they catch up with the 22 win Kings who are trying to push for the playoffs. Like they're not. No matter the Pistons could go on a hot streak compared to what they've had this far, like win 3 to 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, and they still will not be out of the top 3 seed. So I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to see. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to see some improvement and some wins happen because it's not going to matter in totality. I feel like in the lottery odds. Now you could drop from like 1 to 3, and now you have a chance of going down all the way down to 8. But you're still going to have the exact same odds you would have at 1 as you would have if you got 1, 2, or 3. So I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to see development from your young guys, and if that leads to wins, that should be happy. So that's what I want to see. I want to see development of the young guys, and if the young guys are the ones leading the Pistons to victories, like if Killian Hayes is having a great second half of the season, if Cade starts turning it up really a lot, if Sadiq continues this stretch, Isaiah Stewart gets better, you got Marvin Bagley starts going crazy, you got all the young guys contributing to wins after the All-Star break, I think that's what you should want because that points to good things about the future. And I don't think that them winning a few games, again, they're not going to catch up to these teams to the point where they're losing out on draft stock, really. It's just they're too far behind now. Even if they were going on a hot streak, it's not going to change anything. So I don't see why you'd want them to just continue to lose every single game if it meant hurting development. I'm for development. If that leads to wins, so be it. I'd be happy about it. Next question will be from YouTube, the YouTube channel. It's from Greg C. He says, with Cade as our point guard, what do you feel should be his ideal stat line, points, assists, field goal attempts? Well, first off, I don't view Cade as the point guard. I don't think Cade should be the point guard of the team moving forward. Like, should he be like the primary ball handler? Sure. And I guess if you want to call that a point guard, go ahead. But I feel like he should be definitely mixed off ball, on ball, coming off screens, all that kind of stuff. So take that for what you will. What I think his ideal stat line should be, I don't know if you mean like the rest of this season, I would say like 18 and 6 on like, I don't know, 15, 16 shot attempts a game, something like that. If you're talking about the rest of the season, if you're talking about like in the future when like he's at his peak, I think it's way too early. I don't want to like try to project that because I don't know where he could possibly be at. I think like the most like tempered expectation, I guess, would be like 20 and 7 in his prime, but I think he could probably even do better than that. So I don't want to even project his future. I'll say for the rest of this season, I could see like 18 and 6 on like 15 shot attempts a game. That's what I'm looking at there. Let's go ahead and go back to the Twitter now. Let's go to this question. This is from Pistons are dope. He says, who is the most underrated and overrated players on the Detroit Pistons? And this will be the last question we answer before we go to the break. The most overrated Piston on the squad, Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant's the most overrated Piston on the squad. He's shooting 41% from the field, 33% from deep. He's been right around that same shooting splits since the first 18 games of last season. The first 18 games of the previous season really has been buying him a lot of stock within Pistons fan base and across the league. The fact is, after those first 18 games, he has not been that good. He's been extremely inefficient. He takes bad shots. So I think he has to be the most overrated person because people thought he was going to be netting the Pistons 2 first-round picks, and he's just not worth that. I don't think anyone else on the team is being overrated like that. Maybe earlier in the season I would have said maybe Sadiq Bey, but I don't think anyone else even comes close to what people value Jeremy and what Jeremy's actually played like. Underrated player, most underrated player on the Detroit Pistons, huh? I don't think the Pistons have any underrated players on their team. I mean, you could try, if you mean like nationally, I guess you could probably try to say Sadiq Bey would be the most underrated player on the team. But outside of that, I don't think they really have anyone underrated on the team. I think everyone basically gets overvalued. But if you're going to go nationally, I'll go ahead and say Sadiq Bey. Sadiq Bey probably doesn't get talked enough about. I know he's in the Rising Stars channel. He got a little buzz yesterday. But before that, I don't feel like you really hear him get talked about a lot. And that's because he's in Detroit. But yeah, outside of that, nationally and locally, I don't think anyone was really underrated. But yeah, that's where I stand with that. When we come back, we'll continue to answer all of your guys' questions that you guys sent in. But first, I had to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, TrueBill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't want, need, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. And your TrueBill concert is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill also has over 2 million users and helps save them over $100 million. Like Matthew B., who says, quote unquote, in a matter of seconds, I saved $660 for the year on my DirecTV bill, saved $120 for the year on my Sirius XM bill, and saved $840 a year on car insurance, end quote. So don't fall for the subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now to truebill.com/lockedonnba. It can save you thousands a year. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. I had a few of you guys reach out real quick, so I'm just going to spend a little bit talking about this. It's not Pistons related. I talked about, at the beginning of the podcast that I watched this movie with my fiance, and that's why I missed some of the games. And some of you guys were tweeting at me saying, hey, talk about what was the movie? Why'd you hate it? Blah, blah. So just real quickly, she made me watch Gone Girl for the first time ever. If any of you guys have listened to that or watched that movie, comment down below your guys' thoughts or tweet at me at Keke. But all I want to say is I've never been so pissed off after watching a movie in my entire life. It's the most messed up movie I've ever seen, and the fact it ended the way it did, I left that movie just absolutely furious. I can't believe what I had just watched. I can't believe that this woman got away with this kind of thing. There's some other thoughts I'd like to say on it, but I'd probably get in trouble if I did. But either way, we'll move on now. I know some of you guys wanted me to talk about that real quick. You guys gotta let me know if you guys have seen that movie. Comment down below and let me know what you guys think. Most messed up movie I've ever watched, man. Crazy. I think the last question was on Twitter, so let's go back to the YouTube channel. This one's from Brian Parsons. He says, if we get a top 3 pick in the draft and a decent free agent, what teams in the East do you see the Pistons leapfrogging next year? That's a tough question. So if you remember before the season started in the offseason, I was on here saying that the Pistons realistically could see improvements across the board and still be at the bottom of the conference because the East has got that much better. Now, you haven't seen improvements across the board. I think a lot of people would say you've seen a lot of step backs or at least neutral gains this season. If you add a top 3 pick and a top free agent, I don't know. Like, I'm sure they leapfrog some people, and I'm sure they probably would start competing with people in the play-in. But like, just looking at who it would be, it's hard for me to pick who it would be that they leapfrog. Like, Indiana just got Halliburton. They kept Turner, and you have to assume that they'd be decent. They're not going to be just flat out trash. They got Halliburton and stuff, so I think they'll be fine. They'll probably be around this 13 to 10 area. The Knicks, I didn't think the Knicks would be this trash this year. So maybe they continue to take a step back next year. Who knows? If the Knicks, though, they could pull a free agent. So maybe the Knicks and the Pacers. And then the Wizards possibly, because I know Bradley Beal may be traded next year. He may actually be gone next year. So those are the 3 teams, which would only have the Pistons at 11th seed. Because I don't know if they're leapfrogging the Trae Young Hawks, the Hornets, who are deep, unless they steal Miles Bridges from them, and maybe that was just like a big piece that they end up taking a hit to, and the Hornets get worse. So maybe the Hornets. But then after that, like, who would you think the Pistons could leapfrog? Like, the Brooklyn Nets, no. Raptors, no. The Celtics, no. Bucks, no. Cavs, no. 76ers, no. The Bulls, no. Heat, no. Like, the East is just incredibly deep. So the Pistons could legitimately improve this roster a lot and still just see very minimal improvement standings-wise. The East is just that deep. So I don't know. Maybe 3 teams, I would say. Maybe leapfrogging next year, and that's a maybe. So I don't know. The East is really too deep. I don't know. We'll see how it goes next year. See what they do. So on Twitter, one of you guys asked me, it's the Twitter account's Coco for Kojo, and this Twitter account changed from, they were something Stan for Killian or something, but then Killian had bad games, so they changed it to Coco for Kojo. He asked, what's their origin story of the Camby? So if you guys don't know, there's this GIF of Marcus Camby like signaling dude to get up out of here, and it's like a mega thing that the Pistons community uses nonstop. If you want me to be honest, I don't know where the origin story of the Camby came from. I believe Duncan Smith started using it on Twitter, and not everyone, and he used it one time. I don't know. I honestly don't know the origin story of the Camby. I just know it's now owned by the Pistons, and we are the ones who've made it relevant. That's all I know. I can't tell you the origin story though. I have no clue. All right, let's go back to the YouTube channel and ask this next question. Coolprankstv says, your biggest hope for the Pistons after the All-Star break? My biggest hope is that Killian Hayes turns it around and has a really strong second half of the season. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean I want him to be averaging like 13 points. That's not a big, strong second half. Like, shoot a little bit better from the field, be consistent. He's been very inconsistent over the last few weeks, like all season, honestly. He goes to the bench. He had like a really good first 6 games, and he had a really bad game. Then he comes back and has a really good game. Then he comes back and has a really bad game. I believe he ended off before going to the All-Star break like a bad game too. It was very on and off, on, off, on, off. So I hope my biggest hope is that he has more consistency in the second half. He gets the ball a little bit more and he plays much better and shows some significant improvements that makes people, feel a little bit better about him. That's my biggest hope. Let's go back to the Twitter now. This one is from Xander. He says, in my opinion, Stu has been proving you and us fans wrong. Do you think he could be the future starting center still, in my opinion? I think so. No. I don't think he is. And this is something that there's 2 things I'm going to say about this. And this is one of these points is something I've been meaning to say to you guys for a minute. And I just need this is something I feel like Pistons fans and just aren't really grasping here. So to give Isaiah Stewart credit, he's averaging 10 points a game and 11 rebounds a game over the last 10 games. He's playing pretty okay. He's shooting 52% from the field, not shooting very well from the free throw line, 64%. Still isn't shooting threes at all. So I don't think he's been that great. He's been a little better, specifically on the glass. He had a little streak there where he was averaging over a 6-game span, he was averaging 13.3 rebounds a game, but that was about a week and a half ago on February 8th. 2 things. One, I don't think he's been that great, and I still think what you're getting from him is more of a backup center, and they desperately need a guy who is more athletic, more of a presence inside, so in an offensive threat. So even if he was improving, he still isn't like the archetype I feel like the Pistons need and the archetype you need in the league right now, and he's just a little too small. It is what it is. If you guys saw the picture of them, of Sadiq, Isaiah Stewart, and Kate standing next to each other, both of them look taller than Stu. I don't think he's the starting center. That's one. And 2, another reason why is that did you guys just not hear what I said about the Eastern Conference and how good it is? Like, the Pistons aren't playing just to compete for a play-in for the rest of the 5-7 years. Like, we're talking about the starting center of the future. This team has Kate Cunningham. They're probably looking at championship or contender aspirations at some point in the next 5 years, 4 to 5 years. Isaiah Stewart as your starting center isn't cutting it on a contender. Isaiah Stewart as your starting center probably isn't cutting it on a contender or a championship level team or a top 4 team in the East, top 5 team in the East. Like, if we're looking at that, we are no longer in the old years of just wanting to be an 8th seed or whatever. If we're looking at top 4 team in the East, contender kind of stuff, Isaiah Stewart is not your starting center in a contending team. He's just not. It's not happening. So I don't believe he's doing that. I think he's looked a little bit better. He can be improved, but I think overall he's going to be a really good backup center. And again, I'm going to say this for the 100th time. I don't see what's wrong with that. I think that's really good value for where you picked him. He can be a good player as a high-level backup big. There's nothing wrong with being a high-level backup big. I don't know why that ruffs so many people's feathers. That's a good pick. At what was it? Where would you get picked? 16 as a high-level backup big that plays for years? That's good. I don't see what's so wrong with that being his outcome. But that's where I think it's at. Let's answer another question, then we'll go to the break real quick. This one's from Keon Harnett on YouTube. He says, can Cade be a first option if we become a contender in the future? When you say first option, are you saying the best player on the team? Because I think maybe he will be. It's possible that maybe he's the second best player, but I think he could be the best player on the contending team for the Pistons moving forward. Will he be the first option, scoring wise, in the future? I don't know. Maybe, but I could also see a future where he's like Bryce was on the podcast on the last podcast, and what he said could be the case. Like, Cade averages 20 points a game, 7 assists a game. He gets the teammates involved. He scores throughout the game, but he's not the main ISO scorer kind of dude. And then late in the game, he's the clutch guy, like Chauncey Billups kind of thing. He's Chauncey, except he scores more points a game. If he does that, I could see that, and then they could have someone like a Rip Hamilton on the team who's just a straight bucket getter, and he's just only asked to score, and he's averaging 24 points a game, but he's not asked to do anything else. I could see that happening, but Cade would still be the best player, just like Chauncey was better than Rip. Rip was the scorer, but Chauncey was better. So I could see something like that happening. but I think he can be the first option on a contender. I guess that should be my answer. Yeah, I think he can be. But when we come back, we'll try to answer the rest of your guys' questions. We have like 20 more questions. There's no way we're going to get through all of these. If your question is not answered, send them in again for next week's episode. Let me know, and I'll try and answer them next week's episode. But before we get into any more questions, I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. Football season might be over with Matthew Stafford, my guy, my quarterback, winning the damn Super Bowl. But basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fire coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all the sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action today. Again, head to the website today at betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button over at the YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. Again, I would really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get right back into some of these questions. I believe the last question was on YouTube. So we'll go back to Twitter. This one's from my friend Rob Fritz over in the Memphis fan base. He always asks these fun questions. So let's go ahead and ask this one. Do you eat mac and cheese with a spoon or a fork? And which former Piston role player do you want on this year's team? And why is it Jonas Jerebko? First of all, I always eat macaroni and cheese with a spoon, never with a fork. If you eat with a fork, you're a psychopath. I don't know how the hell you would even eat macaroni like that for real with a fork. You're just like stabbing it and stuff and just like getting it lined. I don't know how you even do that. So no, always a spoon. And former Pistons role player I'd like on this year's team, Bruce Brown. I would love to have Bruce Brown on this team. Or, would I go with Bruce? Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Bruce. He's recent. First name that popped in my head. Nice role player to have in the squad. He's not really gonna help with the scoring and spacing, so maybe he's not the best one that put. But that's the first one that came to my mind. If you pick a role player, like if we're talking about like you can go all the way back in the years. Maybe Rodney Stuckey off the bench when he came off as like a six man, just a scorer. Maybe that would help. Or if you want to consider Andre Drummond a role player now, I 100% would take Andre Drummond at the center spot. I think he would fit perfectly now if he accepted a lesser role like where he's at now. If he accepted the same thing he's doing now here, he's like the perfect thing of what the Pistons need right now. So Andre Drummond actually is my answer. Let me change it. Andre Drummond's my answer. Next question is, do you think Jeremy Grant is traded during the offseason? This one is asked from 30 Undertaker 313 on YouTube. Yes, I do. I think he's going to end up in Portland. Very quick answer there. Next one. This was from one of my friends I graduated high school with, Jay Webb. He said, what's your halftime show verdict of the Super Bowl? I thought it was dope. I loved it. I thought the Super Bowl halftime show was absolutely amazing. I'm not happy with the song Eminem chose to do. I don't know why he chose that song. I would have liked a different song. But overall, I thought it was really cool and really dope. Kendrick Lamar's part really got me hyped. But overall, just all the songs from my childhood that I grew up having my mom listen to back in like early 2000s, late 90s. That's my music right there. 2000s music, late 90s, mid 90s music. That's the music I really like for real. So I liked it. I thought it was amazing. Next question from YouTube is, do it effortless. He asked, what are the Pistons doing with Chris Smith? I have no idea what's going on with Chris Smith. Chris Smith is in the G League playing. I doubt he sees any time up here on the actual team in the NBA. But I don't know. I don't know really what the overall plan is. I wouldn't, I wouldn't consider him too much of a future here or too much of a big piece. I wouldn't worry about it. Let's go back to the Twitter now. I believe that's all the questions all the questions you guys asked on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get into the rest of the Twitter ones. We're going to try to go speed here, fast, and try to get through all of you guys. So here we go. Next one, Chubbs GB says, if Case is relieved of his duties, who do you want to see as the next person in line? Jerome Allen. Are you hoping for someone fresh start or someone with a track record of developing and winning like Mark Jackson? First of all, Mark Jackson's awful. He's crazy. He's not a very good coach. He's not good at all. So keep Mark Jackson as far away as possible. And I would like to have a young coach, fresh start type of coach, one that would be respected. I'd take Jerome Allen, but I would take a young coach who is getting his first try, an offensive-minded coach. I'm tired of the defensive-minded coaches. We've had that throughout the years forever, and our offense continues to suck, and the team continues to suck because they can't score. I'm willing to sacrifice defense at this point. I don't care if the team was like 20th ranked in defense. If we can have a team that's actually like top 10 in offense, I would absolutely love it. I'd like to actually enjoy watching basketball. So please, like for the last 10 years, we've just been trash offensively, and we've been fed the whole, well, our defense is a little bit better, but please sacrifice some defense or some damn offense. Please. We went from Stan Van Gundy, who I actually enjoyed the pick and roll offense all the time. I thought that with Reggie Jackson healthy, it was fine, but the offense wasn't that great then. And then now we have the absolute zero lack of offensive creativity with Casey because he wants to be a defensive. Please, just anyone with the offensive mind. I will sacrifice defense just to have some offense for once in my life watching the Pistons. Please. It's a different era. You have to be able to score the basketball. Just please, God, get an offensive-minded coach. All right, next one. If our goal this year was to win games, who would be your starting lineup? Kate Cunningham, Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey. Has to be Jeremy, and this is going to ruffle some feathers here. I actually think that maybe starting Bagley would be pretty good. Again, you're sacrificing defense, but I think what he brings offensively, I think that would probably be the best lineup right there. I'm not going to lie. I'm starting Killian because Killian and Cade work well together, and Cade has looked really good with Killian. And as long as you're able, this is me winning games, you need to balance both of their ball handlings, and you're getting the best of both worlds. I don't think Kojo has been good with Cade. I don't think that's been good. The defense has been absolute utter trash, and the offense hasn't been good enough to make up for it. So I'll take Cade, Killian, Sadiq, Jeremy, and Bagley. I'm gonna ruffle some feathers because Stu's not in there, but it is what it is. You ask my opinion, that's my opinion. Next one is also from Quinn Lee. He says, which of our young point guards has the most potential, Saban or Killian? Killian by far is not close. David Giancarlo III asked a question. Of the restricted free agents this summer, who do you think is the best fit? Who is most likely? Best fit? I mean, you really can't go wrong with Aiden or Bagley. I think who is most likely? Bagley. Or not Bagley. Why am I saying Bagley? Bridges. Bridges or Aiden. And I think who is most likely is Bridges. I don't think Phoenix actually lets Aiden walk. Next one is from Patson B-Ball. He says, who would you value more, Brunson or Aiden? Aiden. I think Brunson. Okay, let me repeat that. I went too fast. You guys probably don't know which one was my answer. Who would you value more, Brunson or Aiden? My answer is Aiden. He then goes on to say, I think Brunson is more realistic. I would imagine a LaMelo and Rozier pairing is what Brunson and K would look like in Detroit. I'm going to be honest. I'm not as big a fan as Brunson as everyone else is. He's good. He's definitely improved. But a smaller guy like that, I don't really want to spend money on. I'm not going to lie. I'd rather go with Aiden. Next one. This one's from Odulio Garcia. If Jeremy Grant gels well with the young core the last stretch of games, would you be content on keeping him? No. Next question. Kyle Brandon. Who do you see as a backcourt mate to Cade for the future? Hopefully Killian Hayes. His archetype fits perfectly. But if it's not Killian, hopefully just get another archetype like Killian Hayes who's actually good. He goes on to say, I've seen a lot of speculation about Aiden Bridges in the top 3 draft picks, but not a ton of talk for another guard. Is Brunson the only option available this offseason? I think as of right now in free agency, that's all I've heard about. But I think I really do think Killian probably is the best archetype next to Killian or next to Cade. It's just a matter of does Killian become good? If Killian can't become good, he can't be that guy. You just get another guy like Killian Hayes next to him. I think that's the best backcourt partner. So that's why I don't really believe in Brunson as the guy next there. I know that everyone wants a scoring guard next to him, though. I think they can go for a scoring wing, though. Get rid of Jeremy, bump Sadiq up to 4, and get like a scoring wing at the 3. Bridges would probably fit that as well. Now, how much time will we left? How much time do I have left? 2 minutes? 2.5 minutes? Okay, let's try to get through all these. This one's from Detroit Martyr. What you said about Casey makes a lot of sense. The season after he left Toronto, they won the title. He helped that team with developing, and the new coach took him to the next level. Who do you think would be a good fit to coach this team in 2024 and beyond? Who takes us there? Jerome Allen. That's going to continue to be my answer. It's not like I have a well-versed knowledge of every coach across the NBA, but I think Jerome Allen's probably waiting in the wings. Next one is Overthinker. He says, why do you think Cade isn't getting foul calls? Because he's a rookie and maybe because of the jersey he's wearing. I don't know. It's honestly crazy. I can understand like the ticky-tack one's not getting in his way because he's a rookie, but some of these he's legit just getting straight up destroyed. He's not getting foul calls. So I have no clue why. Like you meant, he goes on to mention Barnes, Mobley, Segun, Green, Franz are getting plenty. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's not like Cade's not seeking out contact. It's not like he's not going to the rim. Earlier in the season, he wasn't. He wasn't seeking contact. He wasn't getting to the rim. But he actively is doing that now. He's getting destroyed. He's not getting foul calls. I don't get why he's not. I can't give you the answer. I have no clue. It's the most annoying thing to watch. Next one is from Pepe Sylvia. Is Cade is not getting credit in the community for how well he is playing. Mobley is a huge favorite for Rookie of the Year, even though K has better stats and faces way more double teams. Mobley can just wait for an amazing assist because on a good team. What does Cade have to do? He's probably gonna have to win some games. He's gonna have to average like 20 or something a game over the last 2 months of the season or so. Because Mobley's on a good team, he's contributing to a good team, so he's going to win it unless Cade does something crazy. That's just what's gonna have to happen, and it sucks. Next question is from Dre. He says, "Why do you believe in Killian so much?" Because Killian already has NBA skills that you can build around, and you can see the flashes of what he could be if he just simply added scoring. He already is a really good defender. He's a really good playmaker. He operates well in the pick and roll. If he can simply add scoring, that takes him from like right here to way up here. Like the difference between that, like we're not talking about a dude who can't do anything on the NBA floor and doesn't have NBA skills to build around. No, he already has great NBA defense. He already has great NBA vision. He's a great passer. He's fine in the pick and roll and fighting his open teammates. He just simply needs to score. And if he can add scoring to that, now you got a complete basketball player who's a damn good basketball player for the next 10 to 13 years. So that's why I believe in Killian so much. Also, he's 6'5" and pretty strong. I like that, your off guard position. Next one is cut one, trade one, re-sign one to a max deal. Sadiq, Stu, Jeremy. This one is asked by Das Haas. The one I'm cutting is Stu. I'm trading Jeremy because he probably has the most value. And I'm resigning Sadiq to a max deal. I don't want to pay Jeremy to a max deal because if you sign him to a max deal, his value's completely gone down. No one wants him. Sadiq, same thing would go with him. His value would go down, but he's young enough to try maybe move to inch closer to that deal. And maybe a team would accept his services and take on the deal anyways because he will be younger. So that's my answer there. Is there any more questions that you guys asked on here? This one. Love my country. He says, what signing will the Pistons make for the last roster spot? Honestly, I think they may just go into the offseason with just 14 players. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And then I believe that's the last one that we can answer right now. This one's from Malik Bay. He says, how do you feel about drafting and signing a smaller point guard and running Kate as a 3? I don't like that. I don't want a smaller point guard. I would love, you mentioned saying something about trading for Markelle Fultz. I absolutely love Markelle Fultz. He would fit well next to Cade. He just wouldn't be able to shoot, but he kind of brings the same thing as Killian does. He's just a much better finisher and much better athlete. So I really like Markelle Fultz. I've always liked him. I don't think the Pistons could get him though. I don't think they would really want him either. But I like Markelle Fultz. As far as the smaller point guard thing, no, I like the fact that Pistons have Cade, Killian, or I know they're not starting Killian anymore, which I think is a massive mistake. But Cade, Killian having that switchability across the entire lineup with 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'7", 6'8", like having it across the lineup, everyone just being able to switch and being big enough to do so, I think is a major thing that the Pistons should want to keep. And I'm happy they had that at least when they were starting Killian. Oh, God, we went way over the 2.5 minutes. So we'll end it right there. Thank you guys for sending in all the questions. If somehow I did not answer your question, we didn't get to it, send them in next week. Send it on YouTube, comment down below, or send it in at Keke Hill on Twitter. I'll be sure to try to answer it for next week's episode. Thank you guys for listening today. Thank you for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Make Locked On Bets your second listen of every day. Your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. It's the best way to support the podcast. And until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of All-Star Weekend, 3-point competition, slam dunk competition, All-Star game. Have fun with it. And until Monday, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.